රෙස්ටෝරන්ට් රසට බිරියානි දැන් ස්ටෙප්ස් 3කින්.
හරිම සුළුයි.
Tonight on First at 9, this Monday the 6th of February 2023. Catastrophe. A magnitude 7.6 earthquake followed by devastating 7.8 tremor in southeast Turkey and Syria kills at least 2,200 and leaves hundreds trapped. Sri Lanka offers rescue assistance to Turkey. Unacceptable. Parliamentarians of the Freedom People's Congress to boycott the fourth sitting of the 9th Parliament as the House convenes on the 8th of February after prorogation.
People are demanding relief on the ground, not more and more statements, visions for the future.
Mysterious death. Billionaire Sri Lankan businessman found dead in an apartment in Jakarta. Change policies. China has to proactively seek restructuring of debt obligations of developing economies, insists International Monetary Fund Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva.
China has to change its policies because low-income countries cannot pay.
උසස් පෙළට පසු කොලිෆයි වෙමු ඉහළට යමු ජය අරගමු ප්‍රොමෝෂන් එකට ඊළඟ දාගත්තොත් ඩිග්‍රිය ගොඩ
ජාතික වැලි කළමනාකරණ ආයතනය NIPM වෙතින් රාජ්‍ය වගකීම සහ ලෝපිළිගත් උපාධියක් තරුණ ඔබට Be smart, be qualified, be recognized with NIPM ජාතික වැලි සරසවිය.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9 with Indivadi Amuata. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
And a warm welcome. We take you straight to your top story tonight. More than 2,000 people were killed and thousands are reported injured in major earthquakes of 7.8 magnitude that struck southeast Turkey and northwest Syria today, collapsing buildings and triggering searches for survivors in the rubble. It was followed by another large quake of magnitude 7.5. Now, the effects of the earthquakes were felt in Damascus in Syria and in the Lebanese cities of Beirut and Tripoli, as well as the Turkish capital Ankara. Meanwhile, on the instructions of President Ranil Wickremesinghe, Sri Lanka's Foreign Minister Ali Sabri offered assistance of rescue services to the Turkish Foreign Minister.
The quake, which hit in the early darkness of a winter morning, was also felt in Cyprus and Lebanon. Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan said 912 people were killed, 5,383 injured, and 2,818 buildings had collapsed. In Turkey, the death toll stood at 1,014 people. President Tayyip Erdogan said 5,383 had been injured, but he could not predict how much the death toll would rise as search and rescue efforts continued. He added that 2,818 buildings had collapsed. In Syria, already wrecked by more than 11 years of civil war, the health ministry said about 430 people had been killed and more than 1,000 injured. In the Syrian rebel-held northwest, a United Nations spokesman said 255 people had died. President Tayyip Erdogan spoke by phone with the governors of 8 affected provinces to gather information on the situation and rescue efforts. In the Syrian city of Aleppo, heavily damaged during the war, a health director told media wounded people were arriving in waves. Syrian state television showed footage of rescue teams searching for survivors in heavy rain and sleet. Rescue workers in rebel-held areas of Syria reported extensive damage. Meanwhile, President Bashar al-Assad was holding an emergency cabinet meeting to review the damage and discuss the next steps. People in Damascus and in the Lebanese cities of Beirut and Tripoli ran into the streets and took to their cars to get away from their buildings in case they collapsed. Meanwhile, on the instructions of President Ranil Wickremesinghe, Minister of Foreign Affairs President's Counsel Ali Sabri has offered the assistance of rescue services to the Turkish Foreign Minister over the tragic earthquakes that struck Turkey today.
Well, as Sri Lanka offers assistance to Turkey for rescue and search operation, it is also reported that in Turkey, in the area, there are 9 Sri Lankans living there. To find out the latest on the situation, as Turkey and Syria quakes have claimed over 2,000 lives so far, I've invited to join us live the Sri Lankan ambassador in Turkey, Ambassador Hasanti Urugodawatta Disanayaka. A very warm welcome to you, Ambassador. A severe situation, tough situation, tragic. How do you feel? What is the ground situation there, as you may share with us now?
Thank you very much for this opportunity. People are really worried, and it's a very large area. Like it's about 1/5 of the country looks like is affected because of this tragedy. It happened close to the Syrian border, and it's in the southeast of the country. And there are 3 major provinces which are affected. And out of that, the first 3 earthquakes happened in Kahramanmaraş province and Gaziantep, and Adana province was also affected. So first, what we did was we were checking on Sri Lankans who are there. Mostly it's students. And out of 9 that we have records of, 8 are okay, which we are relieved about. And the last person, that lady, first we got information was in a building that collapsed, but then we got information that everyone in that building has gone out. Then we got again information saying that her mobile phone was found. So we are actually not sure how her situation is, but we are in touch with the Turkish authorities to find out her whereabouts. And then in the interim, there are earthquakes continuously happening. After the morning earthquake in Kahramanmaraş, at 1:24, there was another earthquake there. That was also 7.6 in Richter scale. And that was also felt in Ankara, some minor tremor, we felt it. And then in between surrounding areas, there are small tremors happening. Some are above 4 degrees in the Richter scale. And then there was a little bit higher magnitude earthquake happened in an area called close to Kayseri, which is not so far away from Ankara. Right. And there we have 5 students, and we have information that all those 5 students are safe. But we are monitoring the situation because still the earthquakes, the tremors after shocks are continuing.
Ambassador, you're based, sorry to interrupt, Ambassador, you're based in Ankara, and do you have you all felt the tremors or any after effects of these quakes?
Slightly. When the first earthquake happened in Kahramanmaraş, that was felt. And then again at 1:24, that was also 7.6, that was also felt in Ankara. Slightly, you know.
About the Sri Lankans, you said there are 9. Is that the total Sri Lankans based in Turkey, or are there many? Are you referring to the number that is in the affected areas?
We have about 270 Sri Lankans living in Turkey, mostly in Istanbul, and most of them are students. And there are few who are working as well. The numbers that I referred are the ones whom we have records of living in and around the most affected areas. So altogether, it's 14 now who are living in and around the affected areas. Out of that, 13 are confirmed fine. it's only one person that we are trying to find out the situation of. But we are continuously monitoring because earthquakes and the tremors are happening.
So 13 students, out of them, there's one that the embassy is trying to verify information of and to know the whereabouts. But the rest of them are all students. Have I got the information right?
No, it's the 14 people. It is a mixed group, like community plus students.
Okay.
Majority
and the one
that
person who is missing, is that a student or
no, not a
somebody
student.
who is on work visa?
The lady married to a Turkish gentleman who had passed away, and I understand that her daughter is living in Istanbul. So we are in touch with her and some friends of this lady to ascertain the situation as well. All this information we got through daughter and one of this lady's friends. But we are also now in touch with the Turkish authorities, disaster management people, to find out her whereabouts.
And Sri Lanka has at the same time offered to support Turkey in search rescue services. Now, Sri Lankan Foreign Minister, President's Council Ali Sabri conveyed to the ambassador, the Foreign Minister of Turkey, earlier on the instructions of the President. How is this? What's the level of conversation and communication that's ongoing? Is this through the embassy, or is there any efforts ongoing that Sri Lanka has dispatched services as yet?
I think when the information was received by our minister, because he also knows that Turkish foreign minister well, it has been communicated. And I'm waiting for further instructions from the foreign minister to follow up on it. In fact, we also have recommended support from some sort of support from Sri Lanka towards Turkey, and expressing our solidarity and all that. At the highest levels, we've recommended from this mission as well.
Right. Thank you very much, Ambassador.
Yeah.
Sorry to. Yes, thank you very much, Ambassador, for sharing your thoughts and the update on the Sri Lankans, their situation. Thank you for sharing. And AdaDerana will stay in touch with you for an update on the Sri Lankans living in Turkey. Moving on to other news, billionaire businessman Unesh Subasinghe and managing director of OPEX Holdings Private Limited has been found dead in an apartment in Jakarta, Indonesia. While there is suspicion of foul play related to Subasinghe's death, the Indonesian authorities have already initiated investigations in this regard.
Unesh Subasinghe was the managing director of OPEX Holdings Private Limited, which specializes in manufacturing liquid fertilizers for the local and international market. Subasinghe and his family left on vacation to Indonesia on the 20th of January 2023. It is reported that while in Jakarta, Unesh Subasinghe and his family resided in an apartment complex temporarily. During his stay in Jakarta, the businessman last held a WhatsApp conversation with executives from his business venture on the 31st of last month. Observing the lack of activity out of Subasinghe's apartment, the staff of the apartment complex entered the temporary residence of the Sri Lankan businessman only to find him deceased. Subsequently, on the 3rd of February, the private secretary of Unesh Subasinghe in Sri Lanka was informed of this incident by the management of the apartment complex. Upon inspection of the CCTV footage by the management, it was reported that on the 31st of last month, the businessman's wife, 4-year-old daughter and the housemaid left the apartment complex in Jakarta while putting up the Do Not Disturb tag on the door. However, the current location of the businessman's wife, child and housemaid has not been identified so far. Meanwhile, the Indonesian police have already commenced an investigation into the matter. According to reports, it is suspected that the incident is a murder.
Taking you to political updates now, independent parliamentarian Professor G.L. Perez says members of the Freedom People's Congress, including himself, will boycott the new parliamentary session, which is to commence on the 8th of February. Addressing a media briefing today, Professor Perez said people in the country are requesting solutions from the government to prevailing issues on the ground and not policy statements depicting the government's vision for the next 25 years.
The local government election is going to be held on the 9th of March. The campaign is well underway in all parts of the country. Meetings, rallies and other activities connected with the election. The Elections Commission is setting about its work in a very systematic methodical manner. We have no doubt in our minds that this election is definitely going to take place. And if the government perseveres in its efforts to deprive the people of our country of pronouncing judgment on the performance of this government, then all that will happen is not that the election will be postponed or not held. All that will happen is that it will become crystal clear to everyone that the government has accepted a devastating rout, a humiliating defeat at the very commencement of the election campaign. We have no objection to paying taxes, but these taxes are levied on our hard-earned money. We will willingly pay these taxes so long as we are convinced that these revenues which are obtained by the government will be applied towards purposes which are beneficial for the country. Development. But what we vehemently object to is the corruption and the waste. We do not want to support that in any manner whatsoever. Now, there has been a prorogation of Parliament, and the new session of Parliament is going to be opened in 2 days' time. That is on Wednesday, the 8th of February. We shall not be participating in this ceremony for good and sufficient reasons. People are demanding relief on the ground, not more and more statements, visions for the future. 2048, 25 years from now, we are told that Sri Lanka will be a rapidly developing economy. Can our people wait 25 years? Of course, there is a case for long-term planning that is necessary, but again, the critical factor is the priorities. We must prioritize the present needs and address them in earnest.
Opposition leader Sajith Premadasa says his party, the Samagi Jana Balawegaya, is ready to provide leadership to the nation with humanity. He made these comments addressing an election campaign rally in Minuwangoda. Meanwhile, SJB parliamentarian Dr. Harsha De Silva says the National People's Power cannot develop the country with their old political ideologies.
An election campaign rally of the Samagi Jana Balawegaya was held in Minuwangoda yesterday under the patronage of opposition leader Sajith Premadasa.
පොහොට්ටුව මේ රට විනාශ කළා නැවතත් නොයෙකුත් ලාංඡන වලින් ඡන්ද ඉල්ලනවා. හැබැයි ඒ ඔක්කොමලා රාජපක්ෂලා තව විකල්පයක් ඉන්නවා. ජාතික ජන බලවේගය. ඔවුන්ගේ තියෙන්නේ මර පරණ යල් පැනපු සමාජවාදී අදහස්. එහෙම දිනු වෙච්ච රටවල් අද මේ ලෝකේ නැහැ.
අනුර කුමාර සානක සහෝදරයාගෙන් ප්‍රශ්නයක් ඇහුවත් කොහොමද ආර්ථිකය ජයග්‍රහණය කරන්න කියලා දූෂණය නැවැත්වීමේ. හැම වෙලේම හොරකම ගැන කතා කරනවා. හැබැයි මේ හොරකම් කරපු නායක පවුල බිහි කරේ අනුර කුමාර දිසානායක ඇතුළු JVP කණ්ඩායම. ඒකට මොකද කියන්නේ?
මේ රතු පාට සහෝදරයෝ මේ ස්ථානයේම රැස්වීමක් පැවැත්තුවා. මහා විශාල වියදමක් දරලා. කමක් නැහැ. මේගොල්ලෝ ඔක්කොම මුදල් යොදවලා තියෙන්නේ මොනවටද? සමාජ මාධ්‍යවල ෆේක් accounts හදලා ඒගොල්ලොන්ගේ නායකයන්ව කෘතිමව පුම්බනවා. අද මුළු රටම ඉල්ලනවා මනුස්සකම දන්න නායකත්වයක්. ඒ නායකත්වය ලබා දෙන්නට සමගි ජන බලවේගයේ අපි සූදානම් කියන එක මම මේ අවස්ථාවේ ප්‍රකාශ කරනවා.
Well, leader of the National People's Power, Anura Kumara Disanayake, says his party will restructure the country's school system to address discrepancies prevailing in schools. Addressing an event in Mathura today, the National People's Power leader highlighted the importance of introducing an education policy to ensure that students who enter school from the first grade will not be abandoned their education halfway.
Leader of the National People's Power, Anura Kumara Disanayake, recently held a meeting with the teachers and principals of the Mathura district.
අපිට තියෙන වැදගත්ම සම්පත මානව සම්පත. ඉන්දියාව 2021 IT මාකට් එකෙන් හොයාගෙන තියෙනවා ඩොලර් බිලියන 133ක්. IT කියන්නේ දැනුම. අපි තන අපේ රට ගොඩනැගීමේදී 1 අධ්‍යාපනය, 2 ඒත් අධ්‍යාපනය, 3 ඒත් අධ්‍යාපනය. පළවෙනි පන්තියට ඇතුළත් වෙන දරුවන්ගෙන් 9% 10 විභාගයට කලින් ඉස්කෝලේ අත්හැරලා යනවා. කියන්නේ හැම වසරකම 10 පන්තියට කලින් ළමයි 30000ක් ඉස්කෝලේ අත්හැරලා යනවා. එහෙනම් අපිට අධ්‍යාපන ප්‍රතිපත්තියක් අවශ්‍යයි. පළවෙනි පන්තියට ඇතුළත් වෙන කිසි දරුවෙක් අතරමැදදී අධ්‍යාපනය අත්හැරනෝ යන තත්ත්වයක් නිර්මාණය කරන්න ඕන. මේ පාසල් අතර විශාල විෂමතාවයක් නිර්මාණය වෙලා තියෙනවා. එහෙනම් අපි මේ පාසල් වල විෂමතාවය අවම කරමින් අපි පාසල් පද්ධතිය යලි රීලොකේට් කරනවා. ප්‍රතිගත කරනවා. ඉතින් මේක කිරීමේදී නේද වැදගත් දේ මොකද්ද? බලය. ඉතින් මා හිතනවා මේ පළාත් පාලන මැතිවරණේ ලංකාවේ විශාලතම දේශපාලන හැරවුම මේ ඡන්දෙන් සිද්ධ වෙයි කියලා අපි හිතනවා.
Taking you to business news now, Laugh's Gas Company announced that the prices of its domestic LP gas cylinders has been increased with effect from midnight tonight. Accordingly, the price of a 12.5 kilogram Laugh's Gas LP gas cylinder is up 200 rupees at 5,280. The price of a 5 kilogram cylinder is increased 80 rupees to 2,112, while a 2 kilogram cylinder is now 845, an increase of 32 rupees. The announcement by Laugh's Gas came a day after the announcement of price hikes by the state gas supplier Litro, which stated that the upward price revision is reflected upon the price gains in the international market. Managing Director of the International Monetary Fund, Kristalina Georgieva, says China has to proactively seek restructuring of the debt obligations of developing economies, including Sri Lanka. During an interview with the segment 60 Minutes of CBS channel China, the IMF said that China has to change its policies. The Colombo Stock Exchange shares ended lower, dragged by losses in financial sector counters. Now, the all-share price index fell 0.85% to 9,100.14, snapping a three-day rally. The S&P SL20 fell 0.94% to 2,836.62. The trading volume on the CSE all-share price index fell 73.9 million shares from 106.8 million in the previous session. Market turnover fell 2.32 billion rupees from 4.17 billion rupees in the previous session. Foreign investors in the meantime were net buyers, purchasing stocks worth 490.6 million rupees, while domestic investors were net sellers, offloading 2.29 billion rupees worth of shares. And here's a look at how the Sri Lankan rupee traded against other major currencies of the world today. And elsewhere, global shares tumbled after a run of upbeat economic data suggested interest rates will have to rise further and stay higher for longer, while a stronger dollar and political turbulence hit risk-linked assets. Last week's blockbuster US jobs report sent investors scurrying to load up on dollars to the detriment of emerging market assets and lower-yielding currencies like the Japanese yen.
The MSCI All World Share Index was down 0.5% on the day, driven in part by a 0.7% fall in European blue chips as the Stock 600 came under pressure. The drama over the balloon, which Beijing reiterated was a civilian airship that accidentally strayed into US airspace, has further strained already tense relations and led Washington to cancel a planned visit to Beijing by Secretary of State Antony Blinken. Chinese equities fell today while the offshore yuan touched a one-month low against the dollar. It has fallen by almost 2% in the space of 3 days. S&P 500 futures and Nasdaq futures fell between 0.5% and 0.7% after January's payroll report, so investors price in the risk of more hikes from the Federal Reserve and less chance of cuts later in the year. The dollar strength also washed through emerging markets. The lira bore much of the brunt of the risk-off mood, falling to a record low to the dollar, while the Thai baht posted its biggest one-day fall against the US currency in over 20 years. The dollar was last up 0.5%, keeping its index steady at 103.11, having jumped 1.2% on Friday. The euro fell 0.1% to $1.07, while the sterling was flat at $1.20.
And that's all for tonight. Thank you for watching. Good night.